World Rugby rankings. It's been a while since I've had a look at these. They have been moving around a little bit with all the internationals we've had. We've had those Six Nations kind of warm-up games, the Six Nations final round games, 3 games between the Wallabies and the All Blacks. You've had Spain playing Uruguay. It's been all over the place. There's been games everywhere, which has been great despite the pandemic. There's rugby on. We've got more of it coming with the Autumn Nations Cup and the Tri Nations, which is only one game in. But yeah, undoubtedly it will see things fluctuate in terms of the world rankings. We still have the 2023 Rugby World Cup draw to come, but if memory serves, they are not using the current world rankings to do that draw. They're using the ones from January 2020, so they look a fair bit different than the ones now. Basically, think about who were the good performers at the World Cup. Those are the teams that are kind of rewarded by that. But yeah, we'll go through them, see who's on the way up and see who's on the way down. What have they been doing? And you guys can let me know your thoughts as well. South Africa are still top of the world as World Cup champions. They're not playing any games till next year, so I haven't read anything that says that world ranking is going to change. I'm pretty sure they are just going to be top of the log, and that's generally the way it stays. I mean, I remember when we were thinking about how the possibilities are to get them over to play in the Tri Nations or Rugby Championship and whatnot, and I mean, I thought about maybe they could send a youthful team, but on second thoughts, it wouldn't have been the good answer. When you look at that, if they got a hiding from somebody, it wouldn't quite seem right. Plus player safety and whatnot. But anyway, it is disappointing not to see the world champions play. They are still top of the log. All Blacks are second. They have gone marginally up with their victories over Australia. Less than a percentage point, so they're on 91.84, still well behind the Box, who are on 94.20. I have done a video on how the world rankings work, but essentially you don't get as many points when it's not World Cup time. World Cup time, the points are doubled. So South Africa, that's why partially they're able to be so far ahead of everybody else, because if you win the World Cup, you're getting double the whole way down. England, winner of the Six Nations, they are in there in third, so this is no change from I think post Rugby World Cup. It's pretty much the same top 3. They wouldn't have got any points for beating Italy, because you can see Italy's not even in the top 12. Italy is 14th when there's such a gulf between the sides. On the way the Rugby World rankings work, you don't gain anything from beating an opponent so much further below you. France, however, are the biggest winners of recent times. They are up from 5th into 4th spot on 84.59. So they're still closer to Ireland. They've only just pipped Ireland, who are on 84.10. And they're still a way off England. But success in the Autumn Nations Cup, and you never know. It's interesting because as much as I'm sometimes critical of the way the world rankings are calculated, that's kind of fitting, because I think France, despite losing to Scotland in a performance that they'll probably look back on now as a bit disappointing, they've looked the business. And to be fair, Scotland's up as well, so there's definitely no shame in losing to the Scots at Murrayfield, but that's a lifetime ago. Ireland, like I mentioned, down 1 after that loss to France, but there's still not much between the two teams, and Wallabies are down into 6th. If I'm correct, they were just below Ireland, who were 4th. So it used to be Ireland, Australia, France. After the Wallabies had that draw with the All Blacks, because they got a draw away from home, it was able to get them a few points. But subsequently, with that big loss at home, they have gone back down. So they are into 6th. The Scots, I'm not sure they've ever made it to this side of my board, because I only usually have room for that many teams. But they're getting close, man. They are just behind the Wallabies. And with the Wallabies facing the All Blacks again this week after a record loss, and the Autumn Nations Cup coming in with the Scottish team looking bloody good, man. Stacked full of talent. You never know how high the Scots could go. Again, in the scheme of things, how important is it? I don't know. It's just nice. It's just nice to be moving your way up the rankings to get that kind of respect for the hard work done. Nobody's going to remember that Scotland was either 6th or 7th, on the 3rd of November 2020, but it's not a trophy, but it's still good to see your team moving up the ranks if they've been down there a wee bit. Now, speaking of down there a wee bit, Wales are definitely the biggest winner of the draw for the World Cup being based on the January standings when they were 4th, because they have plummeted to 8th. They've only beaten Italy since Wayne Pivac took over, which is pretty disconcerting. Remember, I think it was like September 2019, Wales were number 1 in the world. And they were like 89 something. That seems like if the Six Nations prior to COVID seems like a lifetime ago, Wales number 1 in the world prior to the Rugby World Cup seems even bloody longer. I mean, I still rate Wayne Pivac as a coach, and I hope he can turn things around, but things right now are looking pretty negative. Tends to be the way that the media and whatnot works, that you're only as good as your most recent results, and his most recent results are pretty poor, so everyone's going to be on his back. He's got the players. Hopefully they can just turn things around. The other teams, Japan 79.29, Argentina 78.31. Now they haven't played a match which was ranked, but they did recently beat a Wallabies team full of their kind of B team guys, like an Australia A side, as a warm-up for the Tri-Nations. And it was a Wallabies team, even though it's an A team, it's still stacked with a bunch of talented guys who could easily be in the frontline Wallabies team. It's never going to have that same intensity as a test match, but it's encouraging. So hopefully we can see a good performance of them in the tournament, because the Rugby Championship without South Africa becoming the Tri-Nations after that most recent result, and again, you got to be wary of only looking at the most recent result, which is the All Blacks giving the Wallabies a hiding. It looks like the All Blacks are just going to walk it. But remember, only a few weeks earlier, the All Blacks had a draw with the Wallabies, and suddenly the Wallabies were the new best thing in the world. Dave Rennie was the best coach. Ian Foster was the worst coach. So, yeah, I guess be mindful of that kind of mentality. But anyway, I'm hopeful for the Pumas and that they can give the Wallabies and the All Blacks a good run. Fiji in there, 76.21. They've had some COVID cases in their camp, so hopefully they can clear that up before the Autumn Nations Cup gets underway in a couple of weeks. And then Georgia is in there, 72.86. Remember, they recently got beaten in the warm-up game for the Autumn Nations Cup, so we'll see how they go as well. Outside the top 12, you've got Tonga 13, Italy 14, and Italy's always the example that you use. Maybe them and the Pumas a bit of how the world ranking system is flawed, because Italy frequently plays the Six Nations guys and gets beaten. They tend to drop. So it means other teams are above them, like Georgia and Tonga, who you'd think, if Italy was to play, would probably go in as pretty heavy favourites. Samoa 15, Spain, after their win over Uruguay, are up into 16th, USA 17th, Uruguay's 18th, and so on. But yeah, those are the Rugby World Rankings as of, what was the most recent Monday? The 2nd of November? So a wee bit going on. Pivac's results are definitely reflected in those changes. Scotland, I would dearly love to see make it to this side of the board. I feel like they've done it once, maybe. But it's certainly been a good story coming out of a pretty disappointing Rugby World Cup campaign, I think. I mean, I know that the Six Nations, they didn't exactly set the world on fire, but they had some bloody good results, man. So they're the only team to beat France. So that's saying something. Hopefully they can kind of get that potential matched by the results, but we'll see. The Wallabies down. Dave Rennie mentioned that he's 4 weeks into a 4-year campaign, so don't write them off. Ireland, they've been a bit of a mixed bag. I think obviously better than Wales since Andy Farrell took over. There's certainly some encouraging signs, although fans will be pretty disappointed after the performance at the weekend. And France are a team that, if you've got your eyes on 2023, are looking like quite a prospect with so many of their guys being in their early 20s. Can you imagine what level they're going to be at in 3 years' time? But anyway, you guys let me know your thoughts on the rankings. How fair? Who's too high? Who's too low? And yeah, I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.